Okay, I spotted this little thing in the local tip shop, and at first I thought it's some modern thing because it's got this kind of gold plastic front on it, even though it had these rather old looking pot shafts with these furry felt things they used to put behind the knobs. And I didn't think too much of it, and then I sort of flicked out a quick look behind it, and it's actually this Aegis Manufacturing Co. 380 St Kilda Road, Melbourne. It's actually made in Australia, same with that one there. And you've got this ancient old valve octal type connector. These old unsheathed sort of shielded cables with the old bayonet type fitting like a light globe. So well, this is probably actually something old, and if it's made in Australia it's definitely old because it hasn't been made here for a while. I looked up online, it looks like it's actually from around the late 50s. And this is actually the tuner and the preamp, only mono of course, that made to run a valve amplifier, which is what this thing over here it says about the Mullard 510. I think 5 valves, 10 watts, mono amplifier. So this, they obviously had their own, I think they actually kit some of these things, the amplifiers. Not sure if they made them fully built, but I think these radios and preamp things came as pre-built. And so yeah, so it's obviously late 50s, early 60s bit of plastic there with a nice gold on it. Almost looks like that pot's been replaced because it's been sawn off. And it's got an aluminium shaft where the rest of them are brass, although that one's kind of aluminium or something. I think that was a Mark 1 or 2 radio. Mark 1 I think it was. So it's got Tasmania, it's only got 7ZL, HOHRHT, which are just the Hobart stations. But it looks like all states, they've only done some of the main ones. 2SM, 2UE, 2KY, 2FC, 3AR, 3LO, 3UZ, 3DB, 3XY. Oh, in South Australia, 5AD was always a big one. Not too sure about the other ones. But you used to be able to pick those all up in Tasmania back in the day on a decent old radio. So it's got some sort of coax cable cut off, not the tuner, but the actual preamp, which is weird. So I don't know if that was some sort of shielded audio into the amp. I'd assume all the audio to the amp was in here along with power for the preamp section. And the radio itself looks like it may have had 240 volts going into it. We'll have to see if there's a transformer in there. Antenna, I guess, there. It's only AM. And one of these is the audio out of it, which would, I assume, go into the one marked radio here. And the brown one, I guess, is just if you ever wanted to add one. And the microphone input, they've just left the... Is that another BNC? It is, yeah, look at that. Oh yeah, the little inside bits in there too. Inner conductor part, so they've supplied that with it, I guess, and you could make up your own leads to suit or whatever. That's just an extension from one BNC thing to another. And we should be able to unplug the radio. Unfortunately, all the original knobs have been stolen off it, although they were pretty horrible looking sort of white and gold plastic things by the look of it, but still would have been nice if they were still on it. It's got the sort of nice copper tone finish, very sort of European, Danish or something, very simplistic sort of look on the front. That almost looks like some homemade guitar amp or something, that bit, but that's just like a copper front panel with minimal stuff on it. I think one of these is the tuning. Don't know what the other does, maybe it's for volume. So you'd think the volume would be on the amp itself or go through this thing. But maybe they also included a volume on these things in case someone wanted to use them for something else. So we've got a couple of nuts holding the preamp on. And somehow these screws I think are holding the tuner in place. It's weird, it stops it from pushing backwards, but I don't know what's stopping it from pushing forwards. But maybe the screws on the side there or something stop it from coming out the front. Yeah, it pops out that way easy enough. Oh yeah, so they've cut holes and these screws slot into them and then stop. Still can't see if that's got a transformer in it. It's fairly heavy, so it may well do. And we'll get these don't think I really want to keep this bit of wood for anything, but looks like someone's just cut this out of somewhere. Probably left the amp behind wherever it was. Unfortunately no amp with it. That would have been worth a lot more than these things. Being a Valve audio amp. But I couldn't resist it. They didn't cost much, so I thought I might as well grab them. It doesn't want to come out for some reason. Oh, here we go. Still catching on. Oh, it's this earth screw, I think. Someone's put a screw there with it. It's got still got a bit of wire attached, so maybe that was for. Well, it wouldn't be radio earth. Maybe that was for the phono or something. A record player. So yeah, some old bit of pine with. Almost looks like part of an old door or something. Pine with veneer on it. Guess I should put those together, although I don't think they're part of the original, but they've got interesting heads on them. You never know, they might have come with the tuner. I guess that's one of the cover screws. Oh, sorry, preamp this one is, not tuner. Does that come off, or have I got to take the whole thing off by the look of it? Interesting old creamy, is it creamy, I think? Maybe even a slightly greeny coloured paint finish to it. I'm trying not to crack this front while I'm doing it. Oh my god, I've got a valve in it. So even this is valve. That's the other thing I was wondering, is that we've got old mica capacitors and stuff. We have a Mullard EF86. Oh yeah, I was going to say there's no light globe on the back of that, but there it is, a genuine Philips light bulb. There, the old Simplex mica caps, Ducon electrolytics. So probably all the parts in this are made in Australia as well, except maybe not the Mullard valves, which yeah, does say Britain on there, which I think was what that Mullard 510 amp thing was about, was to help Mullard sell their valves. They come up with a nice amp design with the intention of getting people to build them and buy their valves. And this coax is actually, is it disconnected? Or has it got a few, it's got one strand still hanging on to this potentiometer, the one that looks a bit like it may have been changed. It's a bigger one with a tap on the back. So I wonder if someone's modified that, so that would have been the audio output. But maybe they just, that was the only shielded cable they had. They used a bit of coax. It might even be audio, but I doubt it. Looks like a bit of RG58 type 75 ohm coax, but that is just hanging on there. One bit's just floating free. Pretty primitive design. It's got like a tag board, tag strip thing down the back there with all the parts wired to it. Sort of thing I would have looked at not long ago and thought, what a piece of rubbish. Why would anyone want that? But of course, these days it's actually people a bit more interested in some of this old stuff. So we've got wiring coming up this harness. We've got a black wire goes to one side of the light globe and another black wire to the other side of the light globe. So that's probably going to go to our, two wires to our valve. So this would have come from the amplifier. You'd put your 6.3 volt filament up there. Assume it's 6.3. Does this light globe even tell you? Wow, Philips Holland. So it's actually a genuine. I can't see any marking to say what voltage it is, but I assume it's 6.3. That's not very handy, is it? It just says 8009D. Really annoying when they don't put the voltage on things. But I guess what the valve, does the valve, if it's a 6 something, that means it's 6 volt, doesn't it? Oh, it's an EF8 or 86, so maybe the 6 means something. So we've got heater elements coming up, or filaments. We've got a red wire and another red wire that both go to these tags with orange wires that have been cut off. So they don't, as far as I can see, don't go anywhere anymore. And we've got a grey wire, there's a green wire also cut off back with the harness like they cut it off in the factory. And this, well, this goes to through a resistor. That's a high resistance. I wonder if that was there. Well, that's probably a high voltage to run the valve as well, isn't it? What's that? Brown, green, geez, 120k resistor into a electrolytic capacitor on the positive. So you'd assume that's some sort of filter cap, 8 microfarad at 525 volts. So being valve gear, I assume some high voltage came up there. So you got heaters and pilot lamp. You got a high voltage. I can't see where those orange wires went that have been cut off this other pair of wires. That's all we really need, isn't it? Just something to power that valve up. And then audio out, which was this shielded cable. Yeah, it must be some sort of early perspex or something that's made out of. But it looks like this has been fiddled with a bit over the years. I mean, who knows, maybe the old valve amp died and someone's chucked that out and replaced it with something solid state, or you wouldn't know. Nice if this cable would actually go back on without jamming in the metalwork. So I guess I'll have a look at the tuner. It's got 3 rubber feet on it, and it's got something loose in it. How on earth do you get into it? Oh, it does have screws on the end. Tiny little things. I assume these end ones would allow the back cover to come off. The others probably just hold the front on. But yeah, something loose for sure. Interesting to see. Oh yeah, it seems to be coming off. I've got like an aluminium chassis. Oh my god, this is ancient. I've got a lump of solder or something just fell out there. Oh, it's in under the front somewhere, I think. But yeah, look at that. Oh yeah, what is that? Oh, it's the light bulb's unscrewed itself. Huh. It's got the old Arts and P label, the licensing thing. Number 3. This instrument was manufactured under license granted by Australian Radio Technical Services and Patents Company Limited, Proprietary Limited, in respect of patents controlled by it for the reception in the Commonwealth of Australia and such territories as may from time to time be administered under mandate by the said Commonwealth. Sound broadcast by wireless, may be administered under mandate of the said Commonwealth, or sound broadcast or wireless, but only for, that doesn't make much sense. Commonwealth, or sound broadcast by wireless, but only for private or domestic use and not for operation for any public or commercial or revenue earning purpose. NB, a post office license is necessary. So I've got this transformer IF type I36 or 136. I think these guys, what are they called? Aegis. Actually sold tuner cans and stuff. There's another transformer IF type 136. Is that what the other one was? Looks like they're both the same sort. Got a little transformer, which, yeah, so that would be 240 volts in, one would assume, into the, that is actually a switch as well, switch pot. Oh yeah, so that turns it on as well, and possibly does volume. What do they go to? They go to the oh yeah, that's a switch. Yeah, it's hooked to something else in there, so I'd assume it does the audio level. And these are mini watt valves made in Australia, 6x4. Mini watt Australia, a 6N8 is it? Yep. And a little 6BE6. No idea what any of those are. And we've got this weird tuning coil thing here. Looks like it's got an adjustment in it. With the antenna input, the old Duke-on High Seal 85. Does the transformer have a date on it? Unfortunately not. A lot of Australian transformers had a date stamped on them. Tuning capacitor with a couple of little trim caps on it. I guess I'm going to have to take this front off to get that light bulb out and put it back in and see what's in here, I guess. I can't even remove that fully without taking the plug off that. It's quite a nice copper coloured paint on everything. Probably what Marant's got their idea from. But I'm sure a few different hi-fi makers would have used that over the years. So it is a genuine bit of valve equipment. So yeah, to me this style of stuff normally would have just looked like junk once upon a time. But now you look at it and go, oh, that might be something interesting. bit of old school Aussie gear especially. So it's more like a hi-fi kind of early hi-fi system type of thing. Back in the days when everyone was just listening to mono radio probably, which this kind of is anyway. It's not going to come off without suddenly shooting off and doing something weird. Here it goes. It's catching on something. There's some old glue in there where they've stuck that on. Again, another piece of, I think that's perspex, or is that glass? That's actually glass, I think. Looking at the way the edges of it are. Yeah, it's an actual genuine glass radio dial, I think. And where'd the light bulb go? Must have dropped down. It's down. There's the socket. It's down behind the radio dial. And we've got another Philips 8009 or whatever it was. Anything that's still intact. So I wonder if I could actually power this other thing off the transformer in this, since we don't have the amplifier anymore. Would this, I guess if you undid the light bulbs out of there, one more valve heater wouldn't worry it. But then I don't know what the other voltage is for it. I was hoping to power this up, but there's no reason I can't fire the radio up, I guess. I was going to see what the preamp did. Some more Ducon electrolytic capacitors. They look to be intact. Yeah, and then we've got some sort of connection to that pot, which then goes into the audio out by the look of it. Yeah, so it does it, yeah, through that little, is that a capacitor? 0.1400 volt, I think, yeah, so the centre tap of the pot goes to the output lead via a capacitor, as you'd kind of expect. There's our dial cord, that's a bit on the stiff side. Probably the old pulleys are seized up a bit. It's coming a bit looser as I'm doing it, I think. Oh, I might even put a little bit of oil down on that thing over here. That's pretty, looks like the grease on that's not real good. An old cotton bud when you need one. Yeah, is that dried up grease? There's a lump of something there. What is that? Or is that something? Oh, there's a bit of wire maybe wrapped around it to stop it pulling through or something. I think that's meant to be there. Yeah, that would certainly free up with a bit of work on the pulleys or the shaft. But yeah, that without a knob on it, it's certainly hard to turn. Who knows when it was last turned. So all they've done is soldered like a bit of wire with a bit of white stuff around it. White plastic sheathing or something on it probably, but fair enough. I can't see any issues with that. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't actually fire up and run. If I put a power cord on it and just hope to hell that it is made for 240 volts, which you would assume it would have to be. So these are probably a standalone tuner unit that you could use. Oh, geez, that plastic's pretty hard and horrible. That you could use with any system, I guess, would make sense for them to sell the tuners as a universal one, which is why it's got a volume control in it as well. Whereas the preamp looks like it was made to wire into the actual valve amplifier. So it's not really a standalone unit, it's part of that particular Aegis amp, or I guess, yeah, it would have to be really, they'd have to have a particular socket on it. For those particular heater connections and whatever the other grid voltage or whatever it is. Is it the grid or the cathode or anode or whatever they have? But some sort of high voltage most valves run off, it seems. So fingers crossed no smoke comes out of this. I guess we should really do the whole dim bulb and all that, but I've never really bothered. Not likely to get much in the way of fireworks out of one of these things, but you never know, being valve gear. But it's amazing how much of this stuff you just plug it in and away it goes again. I can understand if it's really been in poor conditions. Well, we have a light. Now, do I have any way of... I guess if I just hook into my amplifier, I'd prefer to actually hear it come up as it warms up. Now, which channel are we in? That one. Let's look up some clip leads here and get this thing going. Can I make a connection to that? That's going to stay there, probably not. Well, I guess the other option is to go to the capacitor on the output here and hope that is well coupled and not sticking any weird DC voltages out. Well, not hearing anything. Am I on the right input? I should be. Not getting anything at all. I hope that's not shorting the earth. No. The valves are warming up by the look of it. I can see heaters. But I'm not getting any audio at the moment. Well, that's not doing much. Oh, something's happening. Well, they take a while to warm up, but do they take that long? I guess they take a couple of minutes, maybe. Something's happening. Oh, there we go. Well, the volume control's not the best. Definitely some noise there. Now I probably need to, before I touch anything here, hook something up to this antenna, I reckon, because it's not going to have a lot of reception in here anyway. And being a valve thing, it doesn't have any, I mean that is kind of the antenna coil, I guess, that round coil thing there that the antenna lead comes out of, but it's probably not got a lot of pickup like a ferrite rod antenna, so it's probably pretty deaf without something external. Where has my antenna gone? Try it again. Here we go. Picking up some rubbish. Oops. Not the best antenna for it. But sure, that would work better with an external antenna and maybe an earth as well. A little bit of heat coming off, but nothing too major. But anyway, that proves the point that that is basically running. But yeah, it's a bit of an issue not having a rod antenna like a modern radio. That's going to make it pretty deaf, I would think. What do we want to do? Put that front back on. I'll give that a quick clean. Even though someone will probably say you shouldn't, but it's got a bit of muck on it, I can see. Oh, the way the knobs were. At least someone obviously thought the knobs were worth saving off this thing. But unfortunately that's ruined the value of it a fair bit, I would think. Maybe it's just the sun has affected that. Definitely lighter copper colour there. And it's always iffy to try and clean these radio dials if they're on the glass like that from the back, because sometimes they just wipe all the paint off that's been screen printed on there. So best not to clean them if you can help it, but sometimes they're so dirty. In old radios you haven't got much choice. I think someone did come up with a technique for a radio restoration where you could clean those things. There's one little bit of something on there, a bit of paint. Clean them without like wiping them with anything or rubbing them with anything. It's been a long time since, like in the old Electronic Australia magazines and stuff, they used to have a column on valve radio repair, and occasionally I'd read a bit of it just out of interest, but I can't really remember much of it now. But there were some interesting methods people come up with to fix some of this old stuff without wrecking it in the process. But I think that one can go back together. And amazingly, this company looks like they're still in business. They've been going since the 1930s or something. So they're heading for 100 years, which is a rare feat for any business to make it that long. But I think they sell test gear to Telecom or something, or not Telecom, is it even Telstra anymore? I think it is, but to the telecommunications companies, or at least the main Australian one. So that's impressive if the company's still going after all this time. Even though I don't think they really went on a massive scale. But it's good to see them still ticking over and making stuff in Australia. Very hard thing to do after everything was deregulated and opened up to the world. But there's always some niche products you can do at home. I don't think I'll bother trying to clean any of those valves or anything. There's a bit of dust on them, but I guess I could possibly take a little bit off it. Oh yeah, that comes off without any hassle. Get that back together, but at least it didn't end up in the e-waste or something. I hate to think whether the amplifier was there or not, whether that ended up in the e-waste. I doubt it, but I guess because this had a bit of age to it, they thought they'd keep it. Though, like I say, when I first saw it, I thought it was some sort of cheapo modern reproduction thing. Especially this sort of front on this and the wood sort of looked like one of those sort of fake jukebox type things they made and stuff with a CD player in them, and there was a lot of that sort of stuff came out. And for some reason this just looked exactly like it. I nearly didn't look at it twice, and then saw the end of it a bit and thought, oh, that looks a bit older. So I can't really fire this up in a hurry without knowing what voltages to put into it. I think it's safer not to bother. I think all I can do with this is stick it on eBay or something and see if someone's interested in it, if they've got the one or two of the amp modules. And this would be the perfect sort of thing to go with it. Though really, if you want a stereo setup, you'd want a stereo preamp, so a single one isn't an awful lot of use. And yeah, it's a bit of a shame the knobs are missing. I'm sure I've seen similar style knobs on some of the old radios, or radiograms and stuff, so you might be able to find, who knows, maybe they are the actual knobs used on radiograms or something. I doubt they necessarily had their own special ones made up, but they might have got them off one of the big manufacturers. So with a bit of luck, the original style knobs could be got again. Or maybe you could turn something up out of wood or something and paint it up and make it look close enough. That's right, that was just the audio out, so any bit of shielded cable could go on there. Something better than a piece of coax. I would assume that's not the original, but you never know, they might have used coax, but it looks like someone soldered it and messed around and possibly changed that pot. So can we get this cover off? How does the cover come off this thing? Is it just press fit? I probably shouldn't mess with it. Or is it something to do with, what on earth is that thing? Not sure, some sort of thick coating inside it. I don't think I'll mess with that. Someone can beep that out and find out what. You can see which pins have been soldered to. There's only 5 of them look like they've actually soldered to, the others are still hollow. But yeah, I'm surprised that's like late 50s, you know, early 60s sort of era with that plastic, but I guess they were getting into pretty good plastics by then. And what is that, just a headphone socket, I guess? Nice little green light there. So yeah, a bit odd. It's got a gold front on that and a copper on this, but quite a nice finish on them. That sort of sparkly, glittery look to them. Not really something you'd date back to that era with that look to it, especially with a nice sort of square minimalist sort of front on the radio. And like this kind of reminds me of some sort of old guitar amplifier or something I've seen. Maybe the same sort of era, some of the old valve guitar amps. I think I'm sure they had a very similar front panel to this on some of them. So that's an actual selector switch. How many positions does it actually have? Oops, careful. 1, 2, so that's mic, LP, radio. It does have a 4th one by the look of it. It's got 4 dots. Whether that turns it off or something, who knows. Guess we should make sure everything turns. Bass, treble, that's right at one end. Volume, and we know this one sort of works. Clicks off. And yeah, with a bit of something on there, that actually moves quite easily. Probably still wants a bit of lubrication. And yeah, I don't know that radio is 100%, it's pretty deaf as it is, but I have really bad reception here. Probably in a city area it would work a lot better. I'm in a metal shed anyway, and on the wrong side of the hill, out in the country quite a bit. Better put those screws back at the front, I guess. I don't think that piece of wood has any value whatsoever, but you never know, it could be something to do with the original. I doubt it came out of the factory. I'll have a quick look at it, but I'd say that's someone's homemade job. But these belong with someone who's got the rest of the equipment. I mean, it looks like, yeah, someone's just chiseled it out. And Almost looks like they've hand sawn that out, but I doubt it. Definitely drilled a hole there somewhere at some point and used some sort of jigsaw or fret saw or something. So yeah, I guess you could have fret sawed that out pretty easily. I guess I probably should put it back together with its original screws if I can find them. Where did I put those wood screws? There they are. Just in case someone wants it, because they're welcome to it. It's only going to be chopped up for firewood otherwise. Be a nice bit of kindling there. Which is kind of a shame when someone put so much work into making it, but I guess they got their use out of it. But anyway, thanks for watching.